Please give a warm welcome to Tim Lowry.
This morning I told a story about my past life as a school teacher, and tonight I'll tell a story about my current life as a storyteller. But right now I want to tell you a story about my first life as a Kentucky boy. When I was a kid, my mama and daddy did everything they could to make sure that I was as well educated as possible, which meant they made sure I did my homework, they made sure I went to bed on time, that I was at school the next morning, but they also went the extra mile and spent hard-earned money to buy a World Book Encyclopedia. Now they have this thing called Wikipedia. If you look in the fine print, that's a confederacy of dunces. People just put on there whatever they think is right. This was all written by world-class experts in beautiful brown leatherette volumes with the gold trim all the way around the edges. Now, my friend Britt, who lived down the road from me, his mama and daddy spent even more money and they subscribed to Childcraft. Do you remember Childcraft? I was telling this story at a book conference one time and a lady shot her hand up and she said, "I'm a representative of World Book Encyclopedia and I would just like to let everybody know we have updated Childcraft. For instance, it no longer says, 'Someday man will go to the moon.'" So you can still subscribe to those books. And of course, you always ended up with a larger library than you intended because your mama forgot to send the card back every 6 weeks and yet another Childcraft came to your door with a bill attached to the box. So one day, Britt calls me on the phone and he says, "New Childcraft came. It's all about Indians. Come on down, come on down." So I jumped on my bicycle and I rode down to Britt's house. It was in the summertime, so we had all day to play. And we spread out on a rug, a big bear rug, because his daddy was a big game hunter. Spread out on a big bear rug in front of the cold fireplace because it was summer and there was nothing in there. And we flipped through every page of Childcraft. And the whole book was all about the tribes of North America. And we studied everything. And then we decided that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to play Indian. Well, Britt's mom was one of the great moms of the world. So she said, "All right, you boys want to play? I'll help you out." And she got into the rag bag and got some of her husband's old shirts out that she was going to sell in the yard sale. She took sewing scissors and lopped the sleeves off and fringed the bottom and made us some vests. And then we went out to the chicken coop and got some feathers and stuck them up in the back of our hair. She gave us a lipstick and we painted that on for war paint. We were all painted up. And then we got our rubber stopper arrow set and our bow and our spear. We had a spear that was genuine made by Cherokee Indians. You know how I know that? It had a tag on it that said "Genuine made by Cherokee Indians." And many years later, when I visited Cherokee as an adult, I asked a man about that, and he said, "Sure, I can tell you how that's made." He said the stick came from Taiwan, the rubber head came from China. They ship them Cherokee. I slap them together, tie a little tag on it, sell it to kids like you. Handmade by Cherokee Indians. Had all of our junk together, and then she did what great moms everywhere do. She said, "Go outside and do not come back in here." That's how you teach your children to learn. You push them out in the world until they learn something, they can't come back. You'll know if they've learned something because they come home filthy. If they come home clean, they ain't learned a thing. So out we went. When we hit the porch, there stood my sister, and she said, "I want to play." "You're a girl." "But I still want to play." "You're still a girl." There were girl Indians. Dang it, we had seen it in the Childcraft. We couldn't argue with it. Girl Indians all over the place. Like, all right, fine, be a girl Indian, come on. So we start off to the woods to play. And I said, now, we have to have authentic names because we are real Indians. I was the tallest of the bunch. I said, "My Indian name is Tall Man. That's my Indian name." And then Britt says, "Oh, I know." He says, "I know what my name, and I know what your sister's name can be." Because he had a record, and on the record there was a song that went like this: "Running bear, love little white dove with a love that would not die." Remember that? The background singer's going, "Ooga chaka, ooga." Very authentic. He said, "I'll be running bear, and your sister can be white dove." So I said, "Good." And now my sister never went anywhere without a baby doll. She loved baby dolls, and she had this big old baby doll. She's lugging him by the head. And I said, "What's your baby's name?" She said, "Libby." I said, "That is not an Indian name." She said, "I don't care. It's my baby, and I'm going to name her Libby." "No." So we had a little argument. Fine, fine. So off we went. Tall Man, Running Bear, White Dove, and Libby. We went into the pine woods, and we got some sticks and stacked them up around a pine tree, made ourselves like a lean-to, and we crawled in there and we sat down on the ground. We're slapping bugs and poking in the dirt. I said, this is like real Indians. Britt said, no, it's not. He said, real Indians had food. I'm hungry. I said, well, we can go back to the house and get something to eat. He said, you heard my mama. He said, don't come back in there. All right, fine. So we hatched a plan. We went down to the creek and we got some rocks and washed them off, made them look real shiny in the water, stuck them in our pockets. We went to the back door of the house and we pecked on the door. As soon as Britt's mom opened the door, she started in fussing. I told you boys. He said, we are not boys. We are full-blooded Cherokee Indians. Him as blonde-headed, blue-eyed as I am. Then he reached in his pocket and he said, oh, white woman, we will trade you these 5 stones for 3 Indian hot dogs. Because she was a great mom, she played along. She said, well, now, I don't know. You know, my husband, the trapper, he is no friend of your tribe. And if we don't make a good trade, there could be trouble. I need more than that. So I reached in my pocket and I said, I have a dead frog and a string. She said, I'll take the string. So we traded some rocks and some strings. She cooked us hot dogs. She said, take these back to your lean-to. So we went back to the woods and we're munching on our hot dogs. I said, now we got food. We're like real Indians. Britt says, no, we're not. Indians didn't shoot a wiener. They hunted the buffalo. A white dove saw trouble coming. She didn't want any part of that. She packed up Libby and went home. And I should stop here and tell you that I had no idea at that point when I grew up I would have the great joy of being an adoptive dad, and my first child has Indian heritage, and you know what we named her? Libby. So after White Dove went home with Libby, there was a running bear and myself. We were ready for the buffalo hunt. We got our bow and our rubber stopper arrows. We didn't have a buffalo. But Britt's poppy that lived next door had a Hereford beef cow. That's kind of like a buffalo. And so we hunted that Hereford beef cow. We got down on our hands and knees and we crawled through the grass. We jumped up hooping and hollering. We're shooting arrows at the cow and the cow's running around. And all of a sudden we heard a gunshot, which surprised us because we knew whose land we were on. You know, when you grow up in Kentucky, as long as you know whose property you're on, you're safe. It's when you cross an unknown property line that you might get shot at. It's cause, you know, you was raised right. Yeah, you know how this works. Are you Scots-Irish too? I can tell by your look. Yeah, probably on your mama's side. Yeah. Scots-Irish people have guns. We don't mean to shoot you. We just think everybody's more well-behaved if you're standing at the point of a barrel. Well, we heard a gunshot and looked up. It was Britt's poppy had the gun. He's standing up on his porch. He said, stop chasing the cow. Now, he was not my blood kin, so I wouldn't have sassed. But Britt says, that ain't a cow, that's our buffalo. He went, stop chasing the buffalo then. He said, you boys come here. We ran over to Poppy's house, climbed up on the porch. Poppy was sitting on the porch swing, .22 rifle with a scope. Now, Poppy was a big man. So when he sat in the porch swing, there was no sitting to his left or his right. So we sat on the porch floor in front of him. He looked down at us. He said, what you got your mama's Avon all over your face for? Britt says, we're Cherokee Indians. He said, you ain't no Indian. Be quiet. He said, I need your help. He was shooting blackbirds out of the cornfield is what he was doing. So there was a cornfield off to the side of the house, and he'd wait until crows landed in the corn, and then he'd take aim. Bam! You'd see a bird poof, hit the ground, and he'd say, wait, safety first. He'd put the gun upright, and then he'd say, all right, fetch. And we'd run out there and grab the dead blackbird and come throw it at his feet. We were his bird dogs. We were getting all of that bird. So all afternoon, we fetched dead blackbirds and piled them up at Poppy's feet. And after a while, he said, you boys want to know something about Indians? We said, yeah. He said, I'm going to show you something. He walked over to the cornfield and he pulled a cob of corn off of a green stalk, took his pocket knife and cut a little stub off the end of it, and reached over and grabbed one of those dead birds and pulled out 3 flight feathers and jammed them into that cob of corn and threw it up in the air, and it went, came down like that. We thought that was really cool. He said, that there's an Indian toy. It's called the whirligig. That's the Indian word. I had never read that in World Book Encyclopedia. But as he had a .22 rifle with a scope, he was an instant expert. Who was I to argue? He said, I'm going to show you something else. He took his pocket knife out and he chopped the bird's foot off. Well, there were some tendons hanging out of the bird's leg, and he grabbed one of those tendons and pulled it, and that old bird's claws went. And then he let go and then, he said, that there's an Indian yo-yo. We said, how'd you learn so much about Indians? He said, I didn't read it out in no book. He looked at Britt and he said, I like Indians so good, I went and married me one. You did? He said, where's your grandma from? Britt said, Oklahoma. He said, them books tell you anything about a thing called Trail of Tears? Yes, sir. He said, your grandmama's grandmama walked it. Man, we dropped all that fake Indian junk, ran in the house, washed the Avon off our face, ran in the kitchen and said, Granny, are you a Cherokee Indian? She said, yeah, I'm half Cherokee. She said, all the people on my mama's side was Cherokee. Your grandma walked the Trail of Tears? She said, yeah, honey. She said, she's long gone. But when I was a little girl, she would tell me about that. Will you tell us what your grandma told you? Well, I don't know if I have time for that. I'm going to have to peel these potatoes. We grabbed knives. We started peeling potatoes as fast as we could go, as long as she would talk. We finished all the potatoes, cut them up, put them in a pot to boil. We said, tell us some more. She said, well, I got beans that need strung. We grabbed the beans, we started stringing beans. We cooked the whole dinner as long as we could keep her talking. She told us all kinds of fascinating things. But of course then, we couldn't play Indian anymore. We were living with one. That was not appropriate anymore. She knew it all for real, not out of a book. So we went back to World Book Encyclopedia and poked around for something else we could play, and that's when we hit on World War II. Oh yeah. Now my house was the perfect place for playing World War II, because I lived above the river. My house was up here, there was a bank went down to the railroad track, and then there was another long bank that went down to the river, and that was the perfect place for playing Pearl Harbor on account of the bootleggers that were in the county up the river. You see, I grew up in a dry county. That means no liquor sales. Now they call Harlan County, Kentucky a moist county. And I don't know what that means, like liquor sales on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. I have no idea. But in my day, it was a dry county. But the neighboring county was wet, very wet. I was telling this story to some retirees, and the man said, oh yeah, Harlan County, Kentucky, I know that well. And I said, you must have been in the coal mining industry. He said, FBI. So everybody knew where to get bootleg whiskey. Now when the bootleggers had the law hot on their tail, they would throw all their whiskey into the river, and when the spring rain came, high tide float all the bottles down, and then it would wash up next to somebody else's house, and there was no evidence to pin on anybody. So anytime there was good hard rain and high water, you'd go down there, there'd be whiskey bottles all over the riverbank. Perfect for playing Pearl Harbor. Get up a big wad of grass and stuff it in the top of the bottle, so you make like a makeshift cork, and fling 4 or 5 Jack Daniel bottles out into the river, and then stand up on the railroad track. We did play on the railroad when I was a little boy. Don't do that. It's very dangerous. People didn't know as much in those days. My mama used to say, don't play on the road, it's dangerous. Play on the railroad track. So we'd get up railroad rocks, and we'd throw railroad rocks down on those whiskey bottles. We were the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor. Bust a bottle, and you see the USS Arizona go down all the way to the bottom. Of course, then we felt guilty because we were the Japanese bombing the Americans. So we'd pick a bunch of daisies and make ourselves a daisy wreath and have a wreath laying ceremony in the water for the USS Arizona. That kind of justified the whole thing. Well, one day we went down to the river to play Pearl Harbor, and the bootleggers had switched to cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon. And you can't make the USS Arizona out of a can of Pabst Blue Ribbon. So we were wandering around in the ditches trying to find something to play, and I had a stick poking in the weeds, and all of a sudden I found a treasure. An unopened can. I picked up that can and I started shaking it, and I said, looky here what I got. Britt said, what's that? I said, you remember how World War II ended? Remember what we read about? He said, yeah, they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. I said, right here's a bomb called Fat Boy. We're about to lower it down. I shook that can so hard, the top and the bottom of that can were bulging out. I said, get ready, get ready. He said, wait. We read about this. They distributed pamphlets, dropped pamphlets from airplanes all over Japan telling people to get out of the industrial centers before the bombing happened. He said, we have to distribute the pamphlets. He snatched up a dandelion and went, whoo, and it flew out. He said, the pamphlets have been distributed, bombs away. I flung that can of beer up in the sky and it hit the hard railroad. We were covered in nuclear fallout. My daddy is a Baptist preacher. There was no way we were going to return from the war. We needed leave first. So we went on our bicycles down the road to Poppy's house, plopped down on the front porch. He was sitting on the porch swing. He said, "What's that smell?" We said, "Nuclear fallout." We're World War II veterans. He said, "You ain't no veteran." He said, "You smell like some of my veteran buddies, but you ain't no veteran." He said, "You want to know something about World War II?" He said, "I didn't read it out in no book. I fought it." "You did?" "Yep." He told us about being a ball turret gunner during World War II. Yeah, I hear you sucking your breath in. You've read that poem too about the ball turret gunner that was washed out at the end of the war with a water hose. He told us about that poem. And then he said his plane was shot down over France. He was a prisoner of war for about 3 months till the war ended in France. After that, we couldn't play World War II anymore. That too was sacred. We figured we were going to have to find something that happened long enough ago, nobody survived, so they couldn't boss us around and tell us how to play it. So, being boys of the American South, of course we chose the WOA. Yes. And we decided we would reenact the Battle of Gettysburg. Perfect, because the South didn't do so well in Gettysburg. That's what boys are all about, blood and carnage, death. So it was great. I said, I know how we're going to play it. I had a toy cannon about that long, and it shot about as loud as a shotgun blast. I said, I'm going to get my cannon, and we'll put it on the porch, and then one of us will get behind the goat shed, and I'll make a big rebel yell, and you come running out, and then bam, I'll hit you with the cannon, and you splatter out in the grass. Britt says, okay, that's going to be fine. Who's going to be General Grant? I said, I ain't going to be General Grant. He was a Yankee. He said, he ain't none of my people. I ain't going to be General Grant. So what are we going to do? We looked in an encyclopedia. We saw a picture of General Grant. You know, by the end of the war, he had a big, full, white beard, turned white from all the stress. We had a goat, had a big, long, white beard. We said, let's make the goat General Grant. Well, we saw that General Grant enjoyed cigars, so we jumped on our bicycles and rode to the store and bought a cigar. In those days, they'd sell a kid tobacco if you told him it's for your goat, General Grant. So we got a cigar, ran back to the house, got a rope, tied General Grant with a rope to a stake in the front yard, and gave him that stogie. He's standing out there chewing on that cigar, choking around. I got the cannon, Britt got the rebel flag. We decided I was going to make the first charge, so we traded. He went and got the cannon, I got the flag, I got behind the goat shed. He was up there loading up the cannon. I yelled out, "Are you ready?" He said, "I'm ready if you're ready." I said, "Well, I ain't going to run out till you're ready." He said, "When you're ready, I'm going to be ready." Because that's how the Civil War went. Everybody lined up with everything they could find to shoot at each other, and then they started. "Are you ready? I'm ready if you're ready." You think I'm lying? You should read World Book Encyclopedia. That's how it went. South wasn't as ready as they thought they were going to be. All of a sudden, I let out a rebel yell, and I came out from behind that shed with my flag. Britt hit the cannon, bam! We didn't know General Grant was gun shy. That goat jumped up on his hind legs and clotheslined Pickett's charge. That rope went right around my goozle. My feet flew up even with my legs. I hit the ground, it knocked the breath out of me, and I'm laying there going, and Britt's rolling around behind the cannon laughing, which is a mortal sin to laugh at the Confederate fallen. When I got up, I had a rope burn that went from under my left ear all the way around to my right ear. We knew Poppy would have udder cream for that, so we jumped on our bicycles and went to Poppy's house. He got out the udder cream and he's smearing that on my rope burn. He said, "I read that book. How'd you get this red badge of courage?" We said, "We're Civil War soldiers." He said, "You don't know nothing about Civil War." Britt dropped his junk and said, "How old are you?" He said, "Sit down." We sat down. He said, "You boys want to know something about the real Civil War?" We really wanted to just go back to playing, but we knew we should be respectful of our elders. We said, "Sure." He said, "You ever wonder up there on Layton Trail how that big old cliff got its name, Rebels Rock?" No. He said, "I'm going to tell you how it got its name." He said, back in the war, he said, there really wasn't that much fighting up here in the mountains. He said, But every once in a while there'd be a skirmish. He said there was a Billy Yank and a Johnny Reb got into it. They was fighting over women's what they was fighting over, but they used the North and the South as an excuse to try to kill each other. He said, and the Billy Yank ran a Johnny Reb right up to the top of that mountain cliff, and before he knowed what he was about, he come right out on the edge of that cliff, and there he was, twixt a rock and a hard place, you might say. He said, got this Billy Yank coming up, going to kill him with hot lead, or he could take his chances and jump. Poppy was a born storyteller, so we're sitting there at his feet on the porch swing, just mouths hanging open, hanging on every word. He takes a big, long, dramatic pause. And then he says, my teeth are loose. And got up and went in the house. For 12 years. Never told us the end of the story. I went on through elementary school, middle school, high school, off to college. I was still doing my best to live this romantic ideal, playing out everybody's role but my own. I auditioned for Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, and lo and behold, was cast as Octavius. So I got the closing lines of the play. Octavius from Harlan County, Kentucky. Some of you will remember Andy Griffith's routine about Romeo and Juliet. It was kind of like that. And when I came home from my first semester of college, I wasn't as good an actor or theater major as I had imagined myself to be, and I went back to visit Poppy. Poppy was sitting on the front porch. He said, you like school? Why do the old folks call only college school? You think, what have I been doing for the last 12 years of my life? But school is college. I said, yeah, I like it well enough. He said, you like that theater? I said, I think I like it more than it likes me. He said, they have storytelling at your school? I said, yeah, actually, as a theater major, you can take an elective class in storytelling. He said, if I was you, I'd take that class in storytelling. You could start by telling them that story of Rebels Rock. I don't know the end of it. He said, oh. He jumped. Into a big old hemlock tree and climbed down that hemlock tree like Jacob's ladder and run off to fight the Yankees another day. Oh. We sat there for a long time. I didn't know what to say. He didn't care to say anything else. Finally, he said, you know how that boy knew there's a big hemlock tree he could jump into? His Poppy told him. Now, by this time, Poppy was aged and very deaf. You know how it is when you sit with an aged man who is deaf. You enjoy each other's company, but you don't pass a lot of words. So we sat for a long time, and it started to get cold. I said, Poppy, I'm going to go in the house. You probably should come too. It's getting cold. He didn't move. I thought he didn't hear me, so I raised my voice. I said, Poppy, I got to be getting on. You should go in the house because it's going to get cold and you'll get sick. He didn't move. Then I decided he's just being a stubborn old man. I said, well, I'm going. And I got up and walked to the end of the porch. And I heard him clear his throat. And I turned around and saw an expression on his face that immediately told me he wasn't being a stubborn old man. He was just screwing up his courage to say something. And only the way an old deaf man could say it, he blurted out from the porch swing, I love you. And you won't read that in World Book Encyclopedia. I have a friend who is sitting on the front row named Jude. And Jude came to me earlier today and said, would you tell that story about that boy who cuts giants' heads off? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, me and you aren't the only ones here. If we were on Poppy's front porch, I'd tell you anything you wanted to hear. I said, but I've got to serve a whole bunch of folks. So I promised Jude that I would tell something kind of like my Poppy used to tell if I had just a minute or two And then we'll do some headlocking, me and you, right after this is over, all right? But this is the kind of thing Papa used to tell me when I was about big as you. There's this little old man and this little old pappy. They's poor as Job's turkey. All they had was one youngin'. And they lived way out across the mountain over there, about Line Fork, you know, where they pipe the sunlight in. And they lived in a little old shack, had a little patch of beans out back. One night they went out there to pick a mess of them beans, and the pappy got some, the mammy, she got some. They had buckets they was throwing their beans in. That little youngin' there, and he was standing out there on the edge of the bean patch, digging his toe around the dirt, just playing around. He didn't want to pick no beans. You know why? Boogers. He is scared of the boogers. Somebody told him up and under them dark green leafy vines where it's real cool and shady, that's where the boogers live, and if you grab a hold of them beans, they grab a hold of you and snatch you bald-headed. Well, he didn't want to get snatched bald-headed, so he wasn't going to be picking no beans. Well, Mammy and Pappy went back up the house, and they strung the beans, put them over in a pot, set up on the fire to cook, turned around, there stood that youngin' in the door, ain't picking not nary one bean. The Pappy said, now boy, if you ain't going to work, you ain't going to eat. Get back down there to the bean patch, pick you a mess of them beans. So he made him go back down there and work for his supper. By now, he'd fool around so long, it's plumb dark. That boy run down one row of beans. He's trying to get brave enough to reach up there and yank off a few, and his foot come down on something kind of squishy. Only thing he could think was, boogers. He reached under his foot, got a hold of something. He couldn't see what it was. It was all covered over in dirt. He run back up to the house and he pumped some water over it from the back porch pump, got it cleaned off. It's a big old chunk of meat. Well, beans taste good if you cook a little meat with them. So he run in the house and lifted a little bean pot, throw that chunk of meat in there, and let that meat and them beans cook up together. Look at you, got a horrified look on your face. You ain't never toured a meat packing plant, or you'd know it's better to find your own cut of meat than to buy it from the grocery store. You think I'm horrifying you? You come with me any Saturday afternoon. We'll go up to Monk's Corner and you can watch a butchering. Oh my word. Anyway, where was? Oh yeah, he got that meat and throwed it in that pot. Well, when that was cooking up, that mammy, she said, smell like them beans is cooked with a little meat. And when they eat them beans, that Pappy took a bite and he said, yeah, them beans been cooked with meat. That's good. I like it. But that boy, he didn't tell him where that meat come from because he didn't know who it belonged to, anything like that. Well, it's time to go to bed. Mammy and Pappy got up in a big four-poster bed, and that youngin', they pulled a trundle out for him. He climbed in his bed. About midnight, that youngin' heard it. Way out in the pine woods, it's going, where's my chunk of meat? It's probably the wind whistling through the pine trees, but he grabbed them kivers and pulled them right on around his waist just in case. Then he heard it again. It's out in the barn, it's going, where's my chunk of meat? Them old horses, you know how they neigh and stomp if the wind blows. It's probably the horses. He got them kivers and pulled them right on up around his shoulders just in case. And then he heard something out in the yard, and it's going, where's my chunk of meat? Hound dog howling at the moon. That's all that was. He'd heard that before. He got them kivers, pulled them right on up and under his chin just in case. Then he heard it close to his on the front porch. And it's going, where's my chunk of meat? Them old cats, they'll hiss and bawl. He pulled them kivers right on up and under his nose just in case. And then he heard something riding up and underneath his bed. And it was, you just got exactly what you came for.